I've been very clear that we're not going to have U.S. combat troops in Iraq again. And we are going to maintain that because we should have learned a lesson from our long and immensely costly incursion in Iraq.
The Obama administration will claim they have done everything they possibly and legally could to try and handle the situation in Iraq. They will claim that everything they did was by the book and with the most intelligence they could gather. And they will tell the American public there will be no further boots on the ground in a country where already far too much U.S. blood has been spilled. What they will tell you and what reality is, as usual, two very different things. Let us welcome into the arena, first of all, from the left, former leadership aide to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, currently the senior advisor for Progressives United, Josh Orton. We will be joined momentarily from the right, GOP strategist from his media and advocacy firm in Washington, D.C., Phillip Stutts. So first of all, let me thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me go and start with you because we just had Gary Bernson, a former CIA operative who was on the show, and he said, look, we have to get down to facts here. The only way to get rid of ISIS and to save Iraq is to go into that country. You will need to put troops on the ground, and you have to convince yourself that the thing you need to do is to kill these people. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, first, I'd say that I think it's somewhat disappointing that the same group of people that advised us so wrongly on Iraq more than 10 years ago now believe they have the solution about what President Obama should do with regards to ISIS and al-Maliki. It seems like there's absolutely no consequences for being wrong over and over again. But I have to say that I agree with what the president's doing. I agree that the United States has a moral obligation when there's a community like we're seeing in Iraq facing genocide. I agree that ISIS is a grave danger both to the state of Iraq, to the Middle East, and possibly to the United States. But, I have to wonder the extent of which military operations, and especially troops on the ground, what that will accomplish. The fundamental problem here is that we have a leader, al-Maliki, who from the beginning was uninterested in forming a coalition government and reaching out to the Sunni minority. And to the extent that that was predictable, we have to look at what the alternatives are. And unless we have someone running the country of Iraq who is actually willing to create a government that's sustainable and inclusive, it doesn't matter how many troops we send. It doesn't matter how many bombs we drop. We're going to repeat the conditions that are existent in the country now where a power vacuum exists. And, to the extent that we'll be able to extinguish ISIS entirely, Iraq is not the only country that ISIS is operating in. And so you have to wonder what commitment this will take. And I think what we're not seeing from those who are saying that, well, we need more military intervention, we need troops on the ground, they have absolutely no timetable. They can't describe what success will look like, and so they want to throw troops and money at the problem until we're in another quagmire, and I absolutely think that's the wrong way to go.
Josh, isn't it, though, the president's responsibility in order to come up with that end game and find out what will work? And again, I say this knowing that ISIS is most prevalent in Iraq at this time, and the mistake, according to those who look, the senior strategists, the military strategists, they will all tell you the biggest mistake here that was made was this administration not leaving troops in Iraq and pulling everybody out before the job was done.
Well, I think the biggest mistake was probably invading Iraq in the first place.
Well, but we can't go back there. Let's just both agree that we cannot go back to that point.
Well, I would apply the same logic. We can't go back. And actually, I think that to a certain extent, I think that a lot of conservative pundits were trying to make hay of Hillary Clinton's interview about what's going on in Syria. But I think that even she admitted that even if the Obama administration had been more aggressive early on in arming some of the factions that they think would have prevented the rise of ISIS, there's no clear, you can't draw a straight line. It's unknowable whether that would actually have been successful. So, and looking at whether we would have left troops in Iraq, again, it goes back to the problem of al-Maliki. Not only was leaving troops in Iraq politically unfeasible for al-Maliki, but even if we had kept them there, if we had troops in Iraq, that would have not made al-Maliki more willing to create a coalition government. It would have not made him any less power hungry. And so I think your past guest made the point pretty well, which is that on some level, al-Maliki is acting like Saddam Hussein from the Shia perspective. So obviously, troops on the ground and blaming the Obama administration for the last decision or potentially the decision before that is certainly an easy way to find blame, but it really doesn't draw a line to any good outcome.
All right, Phillip Stutts is joining us now from Washington, D.C. Phillip, we've had a chance here to get Josh's take on this. I'm going to lead off by basically giving you've heard a little bit of what Josh has had to say here, but I will also preface this by saying the same thing. One of our earlier guests, Gary Benson, former CIA, said you have to be honest with yourself. You cannot win this unless you put troops back in there, a certain amount of troops, and you commit yourself to going in and killing ISIS and doing everything you can to kill them. Now, your response to that and also what Josh has had to say.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. The president has not articulated a clear stance. I think there's a lot of frustration in the past from Iraq when we pulled out that we did not have a clear leadership of where we were standing. He sent Joe Biden in his place in some of those negotiations. I know Senator Lindsey Graham has come out and said we shouldn't have left to begin with, but in the premise that the president led off with on that of why we pulled out troops was not true. The bottom line is this president has not led, he dithers. And I would almost say this also goes back to the red line in Syria and where that has led us. It has led us to aggression in Ukraine, and it has led the aggression in Iraq right now. And when we don't take firm stances around the world, this is the result of what we see. So
then, in your opinion, how far should the United States go in order to defeat ISIS?
Well, I think we've got a good first step by doing the airstrikes. I think that I do think it's a good first step. What I think my frustration is that we tend to take all of our options off the table when all of our options should be on the table. And if the president meets with his military leaders and they want to go in and they want to take out these guys, then that's what they should do, and that's the leadership the president should come out with. But we typically are seeing this from a political perspective. We're not seeing this from the militarily perspective. And I think that's the frustration Republicans have and probably a lot of the American public.
Josh, answer that and also answer those who would say the president is playing politics here. He played politics in taking the troops out. He has played politics in waiting. He has played politics in, as you heard Phillip and others say, dithering on this issue here. And now he is playing politics once again by not taking firm affirmative action.
Yeah, well, I just don't think that criticizing the president and saying that he's dithering is an actual military strategy, nor is it a diplomatic strategy. I have to say, it requires quite a bit of chutzpah for those like Lindsey Graham, who were so wrong about Iraq in the first place, to blame the president for fulfilling his campaign promise from 2007 and 2008 to end the Iraq War. I guess I have a question for those who say that President Obama should have forced al-Maliki to accept American troops against his wishes to stay there. Would they have made al-Maliki a different prime minister? Would they have changed his mind? Would they have forced him to reach out to create a coalition government? Because at the end of the day, troops on the ground can only accomplish so much. They can accomplish military objectives, but they can't accomplish political and diplomatic objectives.
But isn't the bigger issue right now in the minds of many killing the enemy, killing ISIS, the people who are beheading children, beheading women, and basically creating a humanitarian issue?
Certainly, and I think that President Obama has rightly said that America has a moral obligation to deal with that. But I guess I would go back again to, if we send troops on the ground and create another full-scale war in Iraq against ISIS or against another non-state actor, what's next? What's the future? How does Iraq become a stable democracy like the neocons have been claiming that it would be ever since 2003? There's no plan for that. It's not clear whether that's possible, especially under al-Maliki. I understand the instinct, the political instinct, to blame the president, to say he's dithering, to say that one decision that he made is now responsible for all instability everywhere around the globe. But I think it ignores the reality that Iraq cannot create a democracy at the barrel of a gun.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there for a moment. I'll have to stop you right there. Phillip, do me a favor. You have 1 minute left. Please get the last word in.
Well, I'd like to know what the president's strategy is. First of all, what was the president's strategy in Syria when he made the red line comment? What was his strategy when he said troops are off the table when Ukraine was invaded? What is the president's strategy right now in the Middle East with Hamas and Israel? We don't really know any of the strategy. That's the problem, and that's where Republicans who say that a hard line at least shows you're willing to play ball and not willing to be bullied around the world is the right way to go right now. Right now, we are being bullied around the world. And Josh blaming the past administrations instead of having a solution for the future is exactly what the American people are sick and tired of.
All right, Josh, I tell you what, you have an answer. Phillip just finished. We are all out of time. Gentlemen, please, let's come back and do this again because we've opened up a whole lot more questions here. We need answers to it. We're going to get you back on both very soon again to discuss this, but I thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Later on this hour, why American voters have nothing to complain about when they whine about a politician not being of high moral character. And next up, a man who knows more about Tony Stewart than most and can cut through the chaff on the racetrack incident that cost a young man his life. It's all coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.